So that's how we get these mechanical type edges using sub Ds. So sub Ds can be used for making smooth organic objects, and it can also be used for making very sharp edged mechanical objects. So there's the back of the flashlight. Now let's continue working on this thing. I'm going to hit Control and the plus key on the number pad of my keyboard to bring up the wireframe cage again, and doing that toggles it on and off. So if you hit Control and the plus key once, you'll turn on the wireframe. Hit it again and you'll turn it off, then hit it again and turn it back on, so on and so forth. I'm going to close that PPG, I don't need it anymore. Now we're going to create this sort of bottleneck area right here for the flashlight. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit I on the keyboard to switch to raycasting edge mode. I'm going to select this edge here, hold down Alt, middle mouse button, click this edge right here, and that's going to select the entire ring of edges all the way around just like before. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to use split edges with split control again. And I'm going to use this ratio edge slider to move this to about right here, I think is good. Then I'm going to close the PPG. I'm going to hit U on the keyboard to switch back to polygon raycasting mode. Select these polygons. Then I'm going to hit Control D on the keyboard to extrude them. And I'm going to hit X on the keyboard to activate the scale tool. And then I'm going to use that manipulator to scale this up. Now that wasn't too good right there. What I want to do is avoid those types of transformations. So instead of using local mode, I'm going to use global mode. And then I'm going to hit COG, center of geometry, to go ahead and get that manipulator to pop up in the middle of those faces. Because if I don't, watch what happens. It scales in a way that I don't want it to. So I'm going to hit COG and global mode has to be activated. And then we'll scale this up to about this point is pretty good right there. So I just scaled it up a little bit. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude. Let me move this window over here instead so we got more real estate space here. Okay, now I'm going to hit V on the keyboard to activate the translate tool, which is a fancy way of saying move. I'm going to grab this blue arrow and move this like this, just a little tiny bit. That way I have two edges that are really close to each other. Remember, the closer the edges are to each other, the sharper the edge is going to be. So I want that. I'm going to hit Control D again to extrude again. And this time I'm going to grab this thing and pull it. And I'm going to try to make this part right here. So I'm going to pull this out something like here. Looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to pull it out to about right there. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. And it sharpens up the edge a bit, but it's still a little bit round. I'm going to use the scale tool to scale this down a little bit, like so. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is with these same polygons selected, I'm going to hit Control D to extrude that again. I'm going to use the scale tool to scale this down to about here, I think is pretty good. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again, and I'm going to use the scale tool and scale this down just a little tiny bit. So I have basically 4 extrudes and scales. So you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move tool and move this 4th extrusion inward like this. Because I'm going to make this lip that goes out here, and then the lens of the flashlight is right here. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to push this into about right here. Now if it's getting hard to see where those polygons are, what you can do is just quickly use the minus key on the number pad of your keyboard and hit it a few times until you get to the low res object, and now you can easily see the spacing from this lip to the lens back here, or the lens cover I should say, or whatever that is. I'm not a flashlight expert. So I'm going to hit the plus key on the number pad of my keyboard again to go back to my smooth mode, and I could see that I moved far back enough as much as I needed to. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again, and I'm going to scale this down just a little tiny bit. I'm going to hit Control D again and scale this down just a little tiny bit. So I'm basically getting all these edges to be really close to each other, and that's what gives me these sharp corners with sub Ds, which is exactly what I want in this case. Now to give this a little bit better detail, more variation, what I'm going to do is take these polygons I have selected and I'm going to move them forward a little bit like this, and that's going to give me an interesting shape right here. Now we might want to use the render region tool to go ahead and start viewing this and seeing how it's coming out. Now the render region tool is a rendering tool. This is not a rendering tutorial, but since it's relevant to what we're doing, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use it. All you have to do is hold down the Q button on the keyboard, then left click and drag out this render region square, and when you let go, XSI is going to render that area out. You can go ahead and hover your mouse over this little blue bar over here on the right and you'll see this slider appear. Crank the slider all the way up to turn the anti-aliasing up. It renders nicer, it just takes a few seconds longer to render, but it might be worth it. Okay, so we can see how this is coming out. Not bad. Alright, so to get rid of the render region, just click this X up here and there it goes, it's gone. Okay, what I'm going to do is hit Control D again to extrude that, and I'm going to scale it down just a little bit like this, and that's it, just a small touch. Let me hide the wireframe. Look at this. Okay, not bad, but it does look like the lens probably should have gone further into the housing a little bit more, so let's go ahead and correct that. With these polygons selected, what I'm going to do is, now watch this area here, and actually let me hit the minus key on the keyboard to down res this to the lowest level, and I want you to look at something here that's very interesting. I need to select all these polygons to move them back, because if I just move these polygons back, that's what happens, and that of course is not good. I need to move all those polygons that belong to the lens back. So how do I do that easily? Well, since I have all these polygons selected, I can right click, then I can go to grow selection. Now you notice that the shortcut is shift plus the equal sign on the keyboard. So when I hit that, XSI grows the selection of polygons one time outward, and you can see that the next ring of polygons is automatically selected. Now let's use the shortcut. I'm going to hold shift and hit the equal sign next to the backspace key, and it's going to grow again, and I can hit shift and that same equal sign button again to grow it one more time. Now let's say I accidentally hit it and grow it again, and oops, these aren't the polygons I want. Well, just hold down shift and hit the minus key that's next to the equal sign, and you go ahead and do something called shrinking. That's shrinking the selection. So you can grow the selection XSI, or you can shrink the selection, and it works with polygons, edges, and even points. So it's a great little nifty tool to use to speed up your workflow and make things easier on yourself. So let me go ahead and sub D this all the way. Again, using the plus key on the number pad of the keyboard, I'm going to move this back to about here. And that looks like it's a little bit further back than how it is in the image. But you know what? To me, it looks better that way. I like it like that. That's another important thing to note. Unless you're working for a client who wants an object modeled exactly how they want it modeled, usually you can have some artistic freedom with this and model the way that you want to. Now here, I don't like how this part came out. This part should have a bit of a slant to it, a bit of a slope. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to go to edge mode with ray casting. I on the keyboard is the shortcut. I'm going to select this edge, Alt, middle mouse button click, say this edge right here, the next edge in the loop, and you can see the XSI selects the entire loop. But I need to also select this other loop. Now a faster way of doing this is simply by using polygon mode. Hit U on the keyboard to switch to polygon raycasting mode, select that polygon, Alt, middle mouse button click this polygon over here, and now XSI selects that entire loop of polygons. Now I'll use the move tool and simply move this forward like this to give it that nice slant like the one in the picture. But this is a bit too smooth here. What I want to do is sharpen that up a lot more. So I'm going to use I on the keyboard to switch to edge raycasting mode, select this edge, Alt, middle mouse button click this edge. That way I can select the entire ring all the way around. Now I just right click, go to split edges with split control, and using the ratio slider I can slide this down here and make that nice and sharp. There we go. Pretty good. Now you can sharpen this part if you want to. I'm going to leave it like that. It looks pretty nice. But if you want to, you can sharpen it now that you know how to. Now I want to make these detailed cuts into the flashlight. See this ring right here toward the front? It looks like that allows us to unscrew the front of the flashlight to replace batteries and the lens and things like that, the light bulb, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and imitate that to make this look more realistic. I'm going to use I on the keyboard to use ray casting edge mode. Select this edge, Alt, middle mouse button click that edge down there, or any edge in that same ring, and XSI will select the entire ring for you. Now all I have to do is right click. I'm going to go down to split edges with split control again, and I'm going to try to get that edge to be roughly placed around where this one is. Obviously this one is not right smack in the middle of this front area. So what I need to do is move this a little bit forward. Something like that looks pretty good actually. Yeah, I think I nailed it right there. Let me close that PPG. Now here's a neat little trick. Let's select this edge, Alt, middle mouse button, click this edge right here. We're going to use the bevel tool. Let's right click and let's use bevel components. And what it's going to do is split this edge up in two. So now we have two sets of edges. We didn't have to create a new one. So this allowed us to save time and energy. What I'm going to do is change the distance here and make it real small. I'm going to try to make it as small as like in this image. In this image, that little cut right there is real small, real tight. So let's make this pretty small. Something like this looks pretty good. I'm going to close the PPG. I'm not going to be too picky with it. Then I'm going to switch to polygon mode using U on the keyboard to activate ray casting. I'm going to select that polygon, Alt, middle mouse button, click that polygon to select the entire loop of polygons all the way around. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control D to extrude. I'm going to activate the scale tool, and I want to make sure that global and COG are turned on. Now I already had them turned on from before, so I've got no problem. Now what I want to do is I want to take advantage of my manipulator. If I move my mouse in between the green manipulator and the red one, you'll notice that this little yellow square that's facing us is going to flip. And now it's going to be oriented to that plane, the Y and the X plane. So now when I click there, you'll notice that the green and the red boxes become highlighted in yellow. And what I'm going to do is scale that down to about right there, just a little tiny bit like that. I'm going to hit Control D to repeat that. I'm going to hit Control D to repeat that extrusion. I'm going to scale again the same way. Just a little tiny bit. Then I'm going to hit Control D again to extrude again, make this even sharper. And I'm going to pull that extrusion down and in like this. So it goes in pretty deep. Then to sharpen that up, I'm going to hit Control D one more time and extrude it just a little tiny bit. And it's very, very small increments. And now if I zoom in here, you can see I have my three edges right here, which are sharpening up this edge here. I have two edges down here, which are sharpening up the inside. I don't need a third edge on the inside because frankly it's an area where you really can't see. So there's no point in wasting polygons making detail in there. But as you can see, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we got the little detail there from the real life flashlight. Okay, now you can see at the real flashlight, let's go ahead and right click and go to a normal zoom so we can see this in a little bit better detail. We can see that the real flashlight has this sort of lip here, so to speak, sort of like a little hump right there. Let's try to imitate that with our sub D. I'm going to turn my wireframe cage back on. Let me go ahead and change the size of this. Right there's pretty good. Okay. To do that one little piece that I want to do, I'm going to have to go ahead and get a little bit creative here. So let's see how we can do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to polygon mode using U on the keyboard to switch to ray casting mode. I'm going to select this polygon, Alt and middle mouse button click this polygon down here to select that entire ring. Now what I'm going to do is hold down Shift and hit the equal sign next to the backspace key to grow the selection a couple of times. Now I don't want the selection to grow too far out, just a little bit. Now over here, I see that I still need to select some of these polygons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a wireframe mode, and I'm going to hit Y on the keyboard to activate rectangular selection mode for polygons. I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'm going to drag select this area. And by doing that, I ended up selecting all the polygons that were inside that crevice right there, which makes it a lot easier for me to be able to work. Okay, let me switch back to shaded view. Okay, now I'm going to switch using U on the keyboard. I'm going to switch to polygon raycasting mode. Holding down Shift, I'm going to select this polygon. I'm going to hold Shift and then hold Alt at the same time with Shift and middle mouse button click this polygon. That's Shift, Alt, and middle mouse button click. And now I have all of these polygons selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select, holding down Shift, select this polygon. Hold down Shift, Alt, middle mouse button, click that polygon to select the entire loop all the way around. And actually here it's a lot easier. What I can do is switch back to wireframe, hit Y on the keyboard to switch to polygon rectangular selection mode. Holding down Shift, just drag select a big old square around this area to select those polygons. Let me switch back to shaded view. Okay, so I have all these polygons selected, which is great. What I'm going to do is hit Control D to extrude. Then I'm going to go ahead and, using the scale tool, I'm going to constrain scaling to only the X and the Y axis over here. And I'm going to grow this out like this. And that's starting to give me that little hump right there, as you can see. So I'm going to scale it out a little bit more, something like, that's pretty good right there. Okay, not bad. Now what I want to do is select this polygon, Alt and middle mouse button, click that polygon to select that entire loop all the way around. And I'm going to go ahead and move this back like this to kind of give it this width that's right there. So moving this back to about there is pretty good. Okay. Hit I on the keyboard to switch to edge raycasting mode. I'm going to select that edge right there. Alt and middle mouse button, click this edge to select the entire ring all the way around. Right click, split edges with split control. And now let's move this closer over here to tighten this up a bit. And right there is actually pretty good. Let me close that PPG. Okay. I want to tighten this area up right here though, because it's a little bit too smooth. So I'm going to select this edge, Alt and middle mouse button, click this edge to select the entire ring all the way around. Right click, go to split edges with split control, and move this split real close to that one right there. And that's going to give us that nice sharp edge right there on that spot. So that's not bad. I want to also sharpen up this area right here because I don't like the way that it looks. It kind of looks like a piece of rubber or something. I don't want it to look that way. So I'm going to select this edge, Alt and middle mouse button, click this edge. Then I'm going to right click once I have that ring selected. Use the same tool, split edges with split control. It's actually one of the most used tools when working with sub Ds, in case you haven't noticed that yet. And move this back to about here to sharpen that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. So let's hide the wireframe cage, deselect the object, and we can see we have a pretty detailed flashlight. Now, I did lose my sharpness here when I started manipulating some of this stuff back here, so I have to go back in there and rectify that. And that's going to be really easy to do. All I have to do is select this edge, Alt middle mouse button, click that edge. Should have the entire ring, and I do. And then just right click, split edges with split control. Move this real close to the edge about here and it sharpens it up for you. Okay, not bad. Okay, there we go. Now let's see how that looks. Alright, not bad at all. Using the Q key, draw a render region to see how that looks. And there we go. We have ourselves a pretty detailed flashlight there that's ready to be used for pretty much anything. Product visualization, a high-res model for a video game in case you're working on a next-gen game or game mod. and you want to create a normal map or whatever, there you go. There's your high resolution flashlight. So let me close that image clip viewer window. I'm going to close this. Make sure you're saving your file. Very important. Can't stress that enough. And we're pretty much done with this flashlight model. Okay, so that does it for modeling the flashlight.